The morning sun cast long shadows across Edwards Air Force Base as Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez wiped grease from her hands with a worn rag. At 28, she had spent 6 years keeping the most advanced fighter jets in the world running. Smoothly, her small frame moved with practiced efficiency around the massive F-35 Lightning II, checking fuel lines and testing systems that most people couldn't even pronounce. "Hey Rodriguez," came a sharp voice from across the hangar. Captain Jake Mitchell strode over, his flight suit pristine and his attitude matching. "My bird better be perfect today. The brass is watching, and I don't need some grease monkey screwing up my demonstration." Maria looked up from the engine compartment, her dark eyes steady. "She's ready, sir. Ran full diagnostics twice. Everything checks out." Mitchell laughed. "But there was no humor in it, right? Like you'd know what a real pilot needs." He turned to his wingman, Lieutenant Brad Stevens, who had just walked up. "Can you believe they're putting women on the flight line now? Next thing you know, they'll want to actually fly these things." Stevens chuckled along. "Come on, Jake. She's probably great at making coffee too." Maria's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She'd heard it all before, the jokes, the doubts, the casual dismissal of her abilities. What they didn't know was that every night after her maintenance shift, she studied flight manuals by lamplight in her small apartment off base. What they didn't know was that she had logged over 200 hours in flight simulators, paying for the time with her own money. What they didn't know was that flying wasn't just her dream, it was her calling. She had tried to apply for pilot training 3 times. Each application had been rejected with polite explanations about current needs and optimal candidate profiles. The message was clear: stay in your lane, fix the planes, and let the real pilots do the flying. Rodriguez. Master Sergeant Tom Walker approached, clipboard in hand. Walker was old-school military, fair but tough. "I need you to prep the backup F-35 for tomorrow's exercise, and make sure you double-check the ejection seat mechanisms. We've had some glitches reported from other bases." "Yes, Sergeant," Maria replied, grateful for the interruption. She watched Mitchell and Stevens walk away, their laughter echoing off the hangar walls. As the day wore on, Maria threw herself into her work. She loved these machines, their sleek lines, their incredible technology, their raw power. Each F-35 cost over $80 million and represented the cutting edge of military aviation. They were faster than sound, nearly invisible to radar, and capable of vertical takeoffs that defied physics. But what Maria loved most was their complexity. These weren't just flying machines, they were flying computers, packed with systems that required deep understanding and careful maintenance. She knew every wire, every circuit, every component. She could diagnose problems that left other mechanics scratching their heads. "Working late again?" Sergeant Walker asked as the sun began to set. Most of the day shift had gone home, leaving the hangar quieter. "Just finishing up the pre-flight on the backup bird," Maria said, not looking up from her checklist. "Want to make sure everything's perfect." Walker studied her for a moment. "You know, Rodriguez, I've been watching you work for 3 years now. Never seen anyone more dedicated to these aircraft. They deserve our best," Maria replied simply. They do." Walker paused. "Can I ask you something? Off the record?" Maria looked up, curious. "Why maintenance? With your test scores and your obvious intelligence, you could have gone into avionics or communications or a dozen other specialties. Why choose to get your hands dirty with these birds?" Maria set down her wrench and looked across the hangar at the gleaming F-35s. "Sergeant, every morning I come in here and I see the most incredible flying machines ever built. I see pilots who get to push the limits of what's possible, who get to dance with the sky at Mach 2. She paused. "And I see the gap between dreams and reality, meaning I may never get to fly one of these birds, but at least I can make sure they fly for someone." Walker nodded slowly. "That's a good answer, Rodriguez. But let me tell you something, dreams have a way of surprising us when we least expect it." As night fell over Edwards Air Force Base, Maria finished her work and began the long walk to her car. She didn't notice the shadowy figure watching from the administrative building, or the phone call being made to Washington. She didn't know that her name had already been flagged in a classified database, or that someone very important had been asking questions about exceptional personnel who weren't being utilized to their full potential. All she knew was that tomorrow would bring another day of maintenance, another day of watching others live her dream, another day of proving herself to people who would never see her as anything more than a mechanic. But sometimes, Maria thought as she looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the desert sky, sometimes the most important battles are fought by the people nobody expects to fight them. Sometimes the most crucial moments come when you're not even looking for them. She had no idea how prophetic those thoughts would prove to be. The next morning would bring an emergency that would change everything, not just for her, but for everyone. Who had ever underestimated the quiet mechanic who knew the F-35 better than anyone realized? The alarm pierced the pre-dawn darkness at Edwards Air Force Base like a knife through silk. Maria bolted upright in her narrow bunk, instantly alert. In the military, alarms at 0400 hours meant only one thing: something had gone very, very wrong. She threw on her uniform and rushed toward the flight line, joining streams of personnel heading in the same direction. The base buzzed with controlled chaos vehicles, racing, radios crackling, searchlights sweeping the runway. "What's the situation?" Maria called out to Airman First Class Jennifer Hayes as they ran. "Training exercise went bad," Hayes panted. Two F-35s collided during night maneuvers. Both pilots ejected, but Captain Mitchell's in critical condition. Lieutenant Stevens didn't make it. Maria's chest tightened. Despite their mockery, she wouldn't wish harm on anyone. Where did it happen? About 40 miles northeast, over the desert. But that's not the worst part. Hayes slowed as they reached the emergency command post. There's a situation developing. Inside the command post, controlled panic reigned. Officers huddled around radio equipment while screens displayed maps, weather data, and aircraft positions. Colonel Patricia Barnes, the base commander, stood at the center of it all, her gray hair pulled back severely, her face etched with concern. "People, listen up," Barnes commanded, and the room fell silent. At 0330 hours, two of our F-35s went down during a routine training exercise. Both pilots ejected. Captain Mitchell is being airlifted to the hospital with serious injuries. Lieutenant Stevens was pronounced dead at the scene. A heavy silence filled the room. "But we have a bigger problem," Barnes continued. 30 minutes ago, our radar picked up an unidentified aircraft approaching from the south. It's flying low, avoiding commercial flight paths, and not responding to radio contact. Based on its profile and speed, intelligence believes it could be hostile. Major David Thompson, the operations officer, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've scrambled two F-16s from Nellis, but they're 20 minutes out. The intruder will reach sensitive airspace in 15 minutes. What about our remaining F-35s? "That's the problem, Colonel. Both primary pilots are either dead or in the hospital. Lieutenant Parker and Captain Wilson are on leave. The backup pilots are at least an hour away." Maria found herself pushing closer, her maintenance instincts kicking in. "Ma'am, what about the aircraft themselves? Are they flight-ready?" Barnes looked at her with surprise. "Sergeant Rodriguez, right. What's the status of our remaining birds?" "Two F-35s, fully operational and mission-ready, ma'am. I completed final checks on both aircraft 6 hours ago. They're fueled and armed for training exercises." "But no pilots," Thompson muttered. "We've got $80 million of the world's most advanced fighter jets sitting useless in the hangar, sir," came a voice from the communications station. "The unidentified aircraft just changed course. It's now heading directly toward the base. Whatever its intentions, it'll be here in 12 minutes. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Maria watched the screen showing the approaching blip, her mind racing. She knew those F-35s better than anyone. She knew their capabilities, their systems, their quirks. And she knew something else, something she'd never told anyone. "Colonel Barnes," Maria said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I need to tell you something." "Not now, Sergeant. We need to, ma'am. I can fly those birds." The room went dead silent. Every head turned toward her. Major Thompson actually laughed out loud. "Sergeant, this isn't the time for jokes," he said. "We need real pilots, not mechanics with dreams." "I'm not joking, sir." Maria stepped forward, her shoulders straight. "I have over 200 hours of certified flight time in F-35 simulators. I've studied every system, every procedure, every emergency protocol. I know those aircraft better than anyone on this base." Colonel Barnes stared at her for a long moment. "Simulator time isn't real flying, Sergeant." "No, ma'am, it's not. But it's preparation. And right now, preparation might be better than nothing." "This is insane," Thompson protested. "You can't seriously be considering, sir," the communications officer interrupted urgently. "The bogey just accelerated. New ETA, 8 minutes. And we're getting reports of similar aircraft approaching bases in Nevada and California. This could be coordinated." Barnes looked at the screen, then at Maria, then at the empty pilot roster. "Sergeant Rodriguez, even if you could fly an F-35 and That's a massive F. You're not combat qualified. You've never faced a real threat. Ma'am, with respect, nobody's combat qualified until they face their first real threat. But I know this, that aircraft out there is heading toward American soil, toward this base, toward the people I've sworn to protect. And sitting in that hangar are 2 F-35s that could stop it if someone's willing to climb into the cockpit. She's lost her mind, Thompson said. Colonel, you cannot seriously be considering so. The communications officer was almost shouting now. 6 minutes out. And we're picking up electronic jamming. Whatever that thing is, it's preparing for something. Barnes stared at Maria for what felt like an eternity. Around them, the command post buzzed with urgent activity, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, the base commander and the mechanic who claimed she could save the day. What's your real flight experience, Sergeant? No simulator time, real aircraft. Maria took a deep breath. 12 hours in a civilian Cessna, ma'am. But I've memorized every inch of the F-35 manual. I've run every emergency scenario in simulation. I've 12 hours, Thompson exploded. In a prop plane. Colonel, this is suicide. But Barnes wasn't looking at Thompson. She was studying Maria's face, searching for something: doubt, fear, uncertainty. Instead, she saw steady determination and an unshakable confidence in her abilities. Sergeant Rodriguez, Barnes said quietly, if I give you permission to take that F-35 up, and if you fail, you could die. Worse, you could fail to stop whatever's coming toward us, ma'am. If I don't try, we're definitely going to find out what that aircraft wants to do to this base. At least this way, we have a chance. The radio crackled to life. Command, this is radar. Bogey is 4 minutes out and descending. Whatever it's planning to do, it's going to do it soon. Colonel Barnes closed her eyes for just a moment, making a decision that would either save the base or go down as the worst judgment call of her career. Sergeant Rodriguez, she said, opening her eyes. Get to that hangar now. The hangar felt different as Maria sprinted across the concrete floor, her boots echoing in the vast space. The F-35 Lightning II sat waiting, its angular form gleaming. Under the harsh lights, this wasn't just another maintenance check, this was the moment everything changed. Rodriguez, Master Sergeant Walker, caught up to her, slightly out of breath. Colonel Barnes sent me to assist. Are you absolutely sure about this? Maria was already climbing into the cockpit, her hands moving with practiced efficiency over controls. She'd studied for years but never operated in a real aircraft. Sergeant, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The familiar layout spread before her, the same configuration she'd memorized from countless hours in simulators, but now it was real. The seat felt different, more solid. The instruments glowed with actual data instead of computer-generated numbers. Talk me through your pre-flight, Walker said, positioning himself near the aircraft's external panels. Power up, avionics check, flight control systems. Maria's voice was steady as her hands moved across the startup sequence. The F-35's systems came alive around her, displays lighting up in sequence. Engine parameters normal, fuel flow good, weapons systems armed. Through her headset, she heard Colonel Barnes' voice from the tower. Falcon 1, this is base command. Hostile aircraft is 2 minutes out. Are you ready for takeoff? Maria looked at the runway stretching before her, then at the master warning panel, all green lights. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained calm. Base command, Falcon 1 is ready. Sergeant Rodriguez, Barnes' voice carried a note of gravity. I'm about to clear you for takeoff in an $80 million aircraft to face an unknown threat. Last chance to back out. For just a moment, Maria thought about Captain Mitchell's mocking words from the day before. She thought about every rejection letter, every dismissive comment, every time someone had told her to stay in her lane. Then she thought about the approaching aircraft and what it might do to the base, to the people she'd sworn to protect. Base command, I'm not backing out. Requesting immediate takeoff clearance. Falcon 1, you are cleared for takeoff. Godspeed, Sergeant. Maria pushed the throttle forward, and the F-35's Pratt & Whitney engine responded with a roar that she felt in her bones. The aircraft rolled forward, picking up speed with incredible acceleration. At 150 knots, she pulled back on the stick, and for the first time in her life, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez left the ground in a fighter jet. The sensation was nothing like the simulator. The G-forces pressed her back into the seat as the F-35 climbed at an impossible angle. The desert landscape fell away below, and suddenly she was in her element, not the grease-stained hangar, but the vast blue sky where physics and engineering became poetry. Falcon 1, Hostile aircraft bearing 090, 15 miles and closing. Altitude 8,000 feet. Maria banked the F-35 toward the target, her radar screen painting a picture of the approaching threat. It was faster than any civilian aircraft should be. Its profile was sleek, angular, designed for speed and stealth. Base command: I have radar contact. Unknown aircraft appears to be military design, possibly foreign. Falcon 1, you are authorized to intercept and identify. Use caution, we don't know their intentions. Maria pushed the throttle forward, and the F-35 accelerated past the speed of sound with barely a shudder. The desert landscape blurred below as she closed the distance to the intruder. At 5 miles, she got her first visual contact. The aircraft was unlike anything she'd seen before, jet black, with swept wings and no visible markings. It was definitely military, definitely advanced, and definitely not supposed to be in American airspace. Unknown aircraft. This is U.S. Air Force. You are in restricted airspace. Identify yourself immediately and alter course. Silence. Unknown aircraft. Respond immediately or you will be considered hostile. Still nothing. But the aircraft did something that made Maria's blood run cold. Turned directly toward her. Base command: hostile aircraft is maneuvering aggressively toward my position. Requesting weapons authorization. Falcon 1, you are weapons free. Defend yourself and the base. What happened next unfolded in seconds that felt like hours. The unknown aircraft launched what appeared to be a missile, a sleek projectile that immediately locked onto Maria's F-35. Her training kicked in, but it wasn't training from a classroom or simulator. It was something deeper, more instinctive. She rolled the F-35 inverted and pulled hard, the G-forces crushing her down into her seat. The missile streaked past, confused by the sudden maneuver, but the hostile aircraft was already maneuvering for another attack. This is real, Maria whispered to herself, then keyed her radio. Base command: taking defensive action. The enemy pilot was good, very good. The black aircraft moved like nothing Maria had ever seen, pulling turns that should have been impossible. But Maria had advantages the enemy couldn't know about. She knew every capability of the F-35, every system, every trick the aircraft could perform. She used the F-35's vertical landing thrusters to execute a maneuver that no pilot had ever attempted in combat, a mid-air vector change that left the enemy aircraft shooting past her position. For a split second, she had a perfect shot. Fox 2, she called, launching an AIM-9X Sidewinder missile. The missile tracked true, striking the enemy aircraft in the engine section. But instead of exploding, the black aircraft seemed to absorb the hit, its skin rippling like liquid metal. Then it did something impossible, it began to change shape. Base command, Maria said, her voice tight with disbelief. You're not going to believe this, but the hostile aircraft just transformed. It's not damaged. And it's definitely not any technology I recognize. Falcon 1, say again. Sir, I think we're dealing with something beyond conventional aircraft, possibly experimental technology, possibly ... She paused, knowing how crazy it would sound. Possibly not entirely human in origin. The transformed aircraft now looking more like a metallic bird of prey again. This time Maria didn't rely on conventional tactics. She thought like a mechanic, like someone who understood machines at their most fundamental level. Every system had weaknesses. Every design had limitations. The question was, what were this thing's limitations? She noticed it moved differently, now more fluidly, but also more predictably. It was adapting to her aircraft, but that adaptation might also be its weakness. Maria rolled into a vertical climb, pushing the F-35 to its maximum performance envelope. The enemy followed, matching her move for move. But at 40,000 feet, something interesting happened. The enemy aircraft began to struggle with the thin air, its transformations becoming sluggish. Gotcha, Maria whispered. She cut her engines and let the F-35 fall like a stone, dropping below the enemy aircraft. Then she restarted the engines and pulled up hard, putting herself directly beneath the hostile craft. At point-blank range, she fired her remaining missile. This time the enemy aircraft couldn't adapt fast enough. The missile struck home, and the black craft began to spiral toward the desert, trailing smoke and sparks. Base command: hostile aircraft is down. Repeat, hostile aircraft is down. The radio crackled with cheers from the control tower, but Maria wasn't celebrating yet. She watched the enemy aircraft crash into the desert, then began a wide patrol pattern around the base. Falcon 1, return to base immediately. Outstanding work, Sergeant. As Maria began her approach to Edwards Air Force Base, She could see vehicles racing toward the crash site. Whatever that aircraft was, wherever it came from, it would provide answers. But for now, she focused on bringing the F-35 home safely. The hardest part wasn't over, it was just beginning. She had proven she could fly and fight. But now she had to land an $80 million aircraft she'd only ever flown in her dreams. The runway approached fast, and Maria made the smoothest landing of her life. The debriefing room at Edwards Air Force Base had never seen anything quite like the scene unfolding within its walls. Maria sat at the metal table, still wearing her flight suit, facing a panel of officers whose expressions ranged from amazement to suspicion to outright disbelief. Colonel Barnes led the questioning, her voice measured but intense. "Sergeant Rodriguez, let's go through this one more time. You're telling us that the hostile aircraft appeared to change shape during combat?" "Yes, ma'am. After my first missile hit, the aircraft's surface seemed to ripple, and its configuration altered significantly. It became more organic in appearance, less like conventional aircraft design." Major Thompson leaned forward, his skepticism evident. "Sergeant, you understand how that sounds. Shape-shifting aircraft aren't exactly standard in any military's inventory, sir. I understand how it sounds, but I know what I saw, and more importantly, I know how it behaved in combat. The aircraft adapted to my tactics in real time, suggesting either advanced AI systems or—" Maria paused, knowing her next words would sound even more incredible, "or some form of technology beyond our current understanding." The door opened, and a figure Maria didn't recognize entered. Oda, woman in a dark suit with the bearing of someone accustomed to classified briefings. Behind her came two men in similar attire. "Colonel Barnes," the woman said, "I'm Director Sarah Walsh from the Defense Intelligence Agency. We need to discuss what happened here today." Barnes stood. "Director Walsh, I wasn't expecting, no one was expecting this, Colonel, but the aircraft Sergeant Rodriguez engaged and destroyed was not in any database of known military technology. The wreckage is ... unusual." Maria watched the exchange with growing unease. "Ma'am, what did you find at the crash site?" Director Walsh studied Maria for a long moment. "Sergeant, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. The aircraft you shot down contained technology that appears to be decades ahead of anything currently in development by any known military force." "Foreign experimental?" Thompson asked. "We don't think so. The materials, the design principles, even the energy signatures, nothing matches any terrestrial technology we're familiar with." The room fell silent. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying I'm not saying anything definitive, Sergeant? But what I can tell you is that your actions today likely prevented a significant intelligence breach. That aircraft was conducting detailed scans of our most sensitive installations." Colonel Barnes leaned back in her chair. "Director, are you telling us we're dealing with some kind of alien technology?" "I'm telling you we're dealing with technology of unknown origin that posed a clear threat to national security. How Sergeant Rodriguez managed to defeat it is almost as remarkable as the technology itself." Maria spoke up. "Mac aircraft had patterns. Once I realized it was adapting to conventional fighter tactics, I started thinking like a mechanic instead of a pilot. Every system has limitations, even advanced ones. I found its weakness in how it handled high-altitude combat." Director Walsh made notes on a tablet. "Sergeant, your unconventional approach may have been exactly what was needed. Traditional pilot training might have been less effective against adaptive technology." "Wait a minute," Thompson interjected. "Are we all forgetting that Rodriguez isn't even qualified to fly military aircraft? This whole situation is irregular." "Major Thompson raises a valid point," Barnes said. "Sergeant Rodriguez, your performance today was extraordinary, but you violated numerous regulations by taking that aircraft up without proper certification." Maria's heart sank. After everything, after proving herself in combat, after saving the base where they're going to court-martial her for breaking rules. Director Walsh held up a hand. "Actually, Colonel, that's not entirely accurate. Sergeant Rodriguez, how long have you been under observation by our Advanced Personnel Assessment Program?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't understand. For the past 18 months, we've been quietly evaluating military personnel who show exceptional potential, but aren't being utilized effectively. Your name was flagged after your third pilot training application was rejected. We've been monitoring your simulator time, your study habits, your technical expertise." Maria stared at her in shock. "You've been watching me." "We've been watching a lot of people, Sergeant. The modern military requires different kinds of thinking, different approaches to problems. Your background as a maintenance specialist, combined with your obvious piloting aptitude, makes you exactly the kind of person we need for certain specialized programs. Colonel Barnes looked confused. Director, what are you talking about? Colonel, what happened here today wasn't an isolated incident. We've detected similar unidentified aircraft near military installations across the country. We need pilots who can think differently, who understand technology at a fundamental level, who can adapt to threats we've never encountered before. Walsh turned back to Maria. Sergeant Rodriguez, how would you feel about a transfer to a special unit? One where your unique combination of skills would be not just appreciated, but essential. What kind of special unit? The kind that deals with threats that don't appear in conventional military manuals. The kind that requires pilots who are also engineers, mechanics, and problem solvers. The kind that faces the unknown on a regular basis. Maria looked around the room at the faces staring back at her. Major Thompson still looked skeptical, but Colonel Barnes seemed to be understanding something she hadn't before. Ma'am, Maria said carefully, are you offering me what I think you're offering me? I'm offering you pilot training, Sergeant, real training, in aircraft you've never dreamed of. But I'm also offering you challenges that will make today's mission look routine. What about the regulations I violated? The proper channels? Director Walsh smiled the first time Maria had seen any emotion from her. Sergeant, in extraordinary circumstances, we make extraordinary allowances. Your actions today saved American lives and prevented a significant security breach. Any bureaucrat who wants to argue with those results can take it up with the Pentagon. Colonel Barnes leaned forward. Sergeant Rodriguez, this is your decision. But I want you to know that what you did today, taking an aircraft you'd never flown into combat against an unknown threat, that takes a special kind of courage. The kind we need more of in today's military. Maria thought about her years fixing aircraft while dreaming of flying them. She thought about the mockery, the rejected applications, the nights spent studying flight manuals. She thought about the moment she'd climbed into that F-35 cockpit, knowing she might not survive, but knowing she had to try. Director Walsh, she said, when do I start? Pack your gear, Sergeant. Your transport leaves in 6 hours. And Rodriguez Walsh paused at the door. Welcome to the real Air Force. As the room cleared, Colonel Barnes approached Maria. Sergeant, I owe you an apology. I've been in command here for 3 years, and I never saw what was right in front of me. You've got the right stuff, you always did. Thank you, ma'am. But if I may ask, what happens to the base? If there are more of those aircraft out there, Barnes smiled grimly. That's above my clearance level now, Sergeant, but I have a feeling you're going to find out soon enough. Maria left the debriefing room with her head spinning. In one day, she'd gone from ignored mechanic to combat pilot to, what, a member of some secret unit dealing with unknown threats. But as she walked across the base toward her quarters, she felt something she'd never experienced before. The absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. 6 months after the incident at Edwards Air Force Base, Second Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez stood on the flight line at Groom Lake, Nevada, better known to the world as Area 51. The aircraft before her didn't appear in any public military database, and for good reason. The X-47 Shadowhawk represented the cutting edge of human aerospace technology, incorporating lessons learned from the wreckage of that strange aircraft she'd shot down over the Mojave Desert. Nervous, asked Captain Lisa Park, her wingman and one of the few other pilots in their classified unit. The Special Aerospace Reconnaissance Squadron, or SARS, as they called themselves, consisted of just 12 pilots, all selected for their unique combination of technical expertise and adaptive thinking. Not nervous, Maria replied, running her hand along the Shadowhawk's sleek hull. Excited. This bird incorporates some of the adaptive materials from the hostile aircraft, but with human engineering principles. It's like flying a piece of the future. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of intensive training, classified briefings, and missions that pushed the boundaries of what she'd thought possible. The unit dealt with what Director Walsh called anomalous aerospace phenomena, aircraft, and objects that didn't match any known technology patterns. Rodriguez, Park, you're up, came the voice of Commander James Mitchell through their headsets. No relation to the Captain Mitchell from Edwards. Commander Mitchell was a former test pilot who understood that the rules of engagement had fundamentally changed. Roger, Control. Shadow Flight is ready for patrol. As Maria climbed into the cockpit of the X-47, she reflected on how much had changed. The aircraft around her was partially constructed from materials that had once been part of an enemy craft, its systems designed to adapt and evolve during flight. But, more than that, she had changed. The uncertain mechanic who had dreamed of flying was gone, replaced by a pilot who had found her true calling in the most unusual circumstances. Shadow 1, Shadow 2, you're cleared for takeoff. Patrol Sector 7 Alpha. Intelligence suggests possible anomalous activity near the California border. The X-47 lifted off with barely a whisper. Its hybrid propulsion system allowing for both conventional flight and the kind of impossible maneuvers Maria had first witnessed in combat. As they climbed toward their patrol altitude, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Captain Mitchell from Edwards had mocked her aspirations, suggesting women couldn't handle real military aircraft. Now she was flying aircraft so advanced they made the F-35 look like a prop plane. Shadow 1, I've got something on sensors, Park reported. Bearing 270, altitude varying between 15 and 20,000 feet. It's not following any normal flight pattern. Maria checked her displays. The contact was definitely there, but its signature was unlike anything in their database of known aircraft, human or otherwise. Shadow 2, let's take a look. Maintain formation and keep sensors active. As they approached the anomalous contact, Maria's training kicked in, not just her pilot training, but her background as a mechanic and engineer. She studied the sensor readings, looking for patterns, for clues about what they were facing. Shadow 1, visual contact. You're not going to believe this. Maria looked through her canopy and saw something that defied explanation. It could be called that appeared to be made of crystalline structures that shifted and flowed like liquid while maintaining aerodynamic properties. It was beautiful and alien at the same time. Control, Shadow 1, we have visual on an aircraft configuration unlike previous encounters. Appears to be constructed of adaptive crystalline materials. Shadow 1, attempt communication. Use standard protocols. Unknown aircraft. This is U.S. military patrol. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. To everyone's surprise, a response came immediately, not through radio, but somehow directly into their minds. The voice was neither male nor female, but carried a sense of vast intelligence and ancient wisdom. Military pilots of Earth, we mean no harm. We are observers, studying your species' rapid technological advancement. The one called Maria Rodriguez, we have been hoping to meet you. Maria's blood went cold. How do you know my name? You defeated one of our reconnaissance units 6 months ago. This was unexpected. Your species typically relies on aggression and firepower. You used intelligence and adaptation. This intrigued us. Park's voice was tight with tension. Shadow 1, what are your orders? Maria found herself in a situation no training had prepared her for. First contact with an intelligence that was clearly not human, but as she studied the crystalline aircraft, her engineer's mind began to work. Control, Shadow 1 requesting permission to engage in dialogue. Shadow 1, proceed with extreme caution. You are authorized to communicate but not to take any aggressive action without direct orders. Maria took a deep breath. Unknown intelligence. You said you've been observing us. What are your intentions regarding Earth? We observe many worlds, many species. Most destroy themselves before achieving true spaceflight. Your species is ... different. You adapt, you overcome, you find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. The pilot Maria Rodriguez exemplifies this quality. What do you mean? 6 months ago, our reconnaissance unit was equipped with adaptive technology designed to defeat any conventional military response. You defeated it not through superior firepower but through understanding. You thought beyond your training, beyond your limitations. This is why your species may survive when others have not. The implications of the conversation were staggering, but Maria pressed on. Are there others like you? Other species watching? Earth, many watch, some wish you well, others ... do not. The reconnaissance unit you defeated was sent by those who believe humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to reach the stars. Your victory proved them wrong, but it also made you visible to them. Are we in danger? You are always in danger, Pilot Rodriguez, but you are also capable of extraordinary things when pressed to your limits. This gives us hope. Commander Mitchell's voice crackled through the radio. Shadow Flight, we're reading multiple contacts approaching your position. Estimate 6 aircraft, high speed, unknown configuration. Through her canopy, Maria could see them, sleek dark shapes moving with predatory intent toward their position. And the crystalline observer craft, unknown intelligence. Are those the hostile forces you mentioned? Yes, they come to destroy us for communicating with you, and to eliminate you for proving humanity's potential. Will you stand with us, Pilot Rodriguez? Maria looked at the approaching hostile aircraft, then at her wingman, then at the impossible crystalline craft beside them.